Hello friends, I'm sad to say that I have a problem keeping my floor clean. I'm confused why my floor is always dirty because the cleaning crew that I hire out is very passionate about their work. Coincidentally, every time they sweep I have to clean out my vents, so I'm starting to think that I have a carpet or vent gnome infestation. So to drown my sorrows away, I did some old-fashioned retail therapy and started looking into getting a robot vacuum. After doing some research, I kept finding the Dreame L20 in the top tier list, and it was also the exact dimensions that I needed, so I decided to give it a try. I submitted my order to Jeff Bezos, and after a few days he shipped it out, and now that it's here I want to figure out how to use it so that my floors will stay clean, but I've never owned a robot or anything like it, so I'm going to have to figure it out. Inside the main box there were two smaller boxes and this large docking station. I was happy to see that it was packaged very well and there was no damage to any of the equipment. The bigger box had the vacuum robot and the smaller box had the cleaning supplies. When I removed the plastic layer, there was no scratches or any marks, and that was true for both the dock and the little robot. The docking station was about 24 inches tall and about 16 3/4 wide, and the top portion was about 11 3/4 inches. This was weird because it was a little bit smaller than what was listed on Jeff's website, or I'm just bad at math and don't understand the numbers that they have posted. I found there's a lot of tape and plastic that needs to be removed, so keep an eye out for that and don't forget the ones around these water tanks. Between the tanks they included a cleaning brush that also has a hook in case you want to try to catch some delicious bass. So underneath the lid are the two tanks and the brush, and also these instructions to teach you how to use the Dreame L20. This is kind of weird, but at this point when I went to shut the lid, I realized how well put together this device was, and they didn't really cut any corners in the design. The back side is pretty simple. You have a power on-off switch and an input for the power supply. I don't know what these electrical numbers mean, but if you need them, here they are. Also on the back is a handle in case you want to carry it around or your kids want to take it to show and tell. There's also two clips on the bottom if you need to wrap around the cable. The front side has a very clean design and would look fine if it's out in the open. On the bottom is the docking bay for the vacuum, the water outlet, the battery chargers, and the two suction hoses for the vacuum. There's a little latch here so you can take off the front plate. On the back of the plate is a seal to prevent dust from leaking out. There's a cubby for extra vacuum bags, as well as the main chamber for the vacuum bag that connects to the two hoses below. That's about it for the docking station, so now let's take a look at the vacuum. The vacuum itself was pretty heavy, but that's expected with such a good build quality. The top cover is held on by magnets and needs to be removed to take off the packaging. On the back are the two metal tabs for charging as well as the water supply. The circular base was about 3 3/8 inches tall, so would fit under most cabinet toe kicks. The robot itself was about 13 7/8 inches wide. On the top are the dock, power, and spot cleaning buttons, and this top thing does not twist off, but is actually the LiDAR navigator. All around the outside are many sensors and speakers, and on the front are lights and camera, which I'll be testing out later. Underneath are the wheels that have a lever system to raise or lower the vacuum. The two wheels have independent motors that can alternate rotation, which allow it to turn, and the front wheel stabilizes and turns 360 degrees. These rubberized wheels are perfect for vinyl or wood flooring and won't scratch at all. The rotating vacuum unit is very soft and should not scratch your vinyl or wood floor. That's about it for the vacuum, so let's get this thing going. Included in the instructions was this quick start guide that shows me how to get it set up. I need to attach the brush that goes in the top left corner and also the two mops that go in the slots below. And that's it, now the vacuum's ready to go. The dock station has a couple steps. The first is to plug it in, then connect the ramp. In the packaging, there's an included cleaning solution that I'll also need to add. There's two tabs that need to be removed, and then I can set it into the cleaning slot. Next, I'll need to add some water to the white tank. Don't add any water to the black tank because that's where the dirty water goes each time it mops. So I'm now ready to finally turn this thing on. You don't have to read the instructions, all you need to do is grab the quick start guide and scan the QR code underneath the cover. When you scan it, it will download the Dreame Home app. Just follow the prompts until it instructs you to connect to the network. And at that point, you'll need to hold down the power and dock buttons.
Waiting for the network configuration.
Then follow the prompts until you're brought to the home screen.
Robot and phone connected.
Once you're at the home screen, hit the charge button in the top right corner, and the robot will automatically go back to the docking station.
Returning to the dock to charge.
Maybe I'm just a dim-witted country bumpkin, but I thought this was so cool that it could find its way home.
Starts charging.
It was like seeing into the future, or seeing actual sorcery. Anyways, I wanted to see how the vacuum would work on a shag carpet and rugs, so I picked up this rug to test it out. And while it was charging, I cleaned up just about everything off the floor so that it could map out the house correctly. This house has a lot of tight corners and hallways, so I'm curious to see how the vacuum will handle it. I also shut all the doors for the rooms that I didn't want it to clean, and when the vacuum reached 100%, we were ready to go. Just hit the play button and let it do its thing.
Start cleaning mop pads.
Before it takes off, I guess it has to unload a bad burrito it picked up during transit. So just be patient and it's good to go. It was pretty fascinating to watch it map out the house because I didn't give it any direction. It just kind of took off and did its own thing. It also identified the rug as some sort of obstacle and kept going around it, and also seemed to be taking its measurements. I was really curious to see how it would handle the chairs and table, and it did it perfectly. It actually went in between the chairs and picked up all the crumbs on the floor, so very cool. When I got to the kitchen, it extended out the mops like arms to pick up all the dirt off the floor. Extending the mops allowed it to clean under the fridge and oven, just like a broom. And because those mops extended out, it was able to get the 90-degree corners. I thought the vacuum would go around the outside of the house and then go towards the center, but instead it divided the floor plan into different sections and would clean one part at a time. And just like the chairs, it had no problem going around the table, and because of those arms, it was able to get underneath. At this point, the vacuum kept spinning around trying to figure out what to do about the shag carpet. It identified the rug as carpet and activated the vacuum, but the 2-inch threads were too deep, so it kept thinking they were obstacles. Eventually, it stopped cleaning the rug and went back to the charging station. The 2-inch threads are probably too deep for the vacuum, but that's totally fine because it cleaned the vinyl floor perfectly. While it was docked, I pulled up the app and could see it was mapping out the house. There's still about 1/3 of the house that hasn't been mapped, so I'm going to wait and see if it does it. And sure enough, cleaning the other 1/3 of the house is exactly where it was going. It got all the spots on the hallway perfectly, and because of those arm extensions, it was able to get all the corners. After finishing the hallway, I wanted to see how it would handle this 1/2-inch threaded rug. It had been mopping the floor, so I wanted to specifically see if it would mop the rug, and I'm happy to say that it skipped it. Later, I realized I probably should have put a board over the stairs, but luckily the vacuum was smart enough not to drive down them. The instructions say to put up boards on stairs and shut the doors, so the vacuum knows not to go there on future cleanings. After mopping around it, the vacuum decided to go on the rug and cleaned it without any problems. And when that was done, it decided to go home. When I pulled up the map this time, the vacuum had mapped out everywhere that I needed it to clean. It identified the stairs and rug, and also any obstacles that were around the house. The white lines indicate the path of the vacuum, and the blue circles are the obstacles. Very cool.
Task completed. Please empty the used water tank timely. Starts dehydrating mop pads.
The first cleaning is done, so I'm going to go empty the black tank that has all the dirty water. I'm going to also give it a couple rinses to make sure it's clean. The first cleaning cycle and mapping of the house was done correctly, so I'm going to try out some of these settings and then run a couple tests on the vacuum. I first went into the intelligent mop settings and turned on the AI mop extend. That automatically extends the arms. Next, I went into the schedule cleanup so that the mop would run every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 11 a.m. One of the coolest settings I discovered was the zoning. This tells the vacuum to clean in a specific area. So if I spill cereal all over the floor, I can tell it to clean that one spot instead of running a full cycle. Just draw out the area, then hit clean. So I learned that you can actually do the opposite, where you can tell it not to clean an area. So in this case, I don't want it to clean the stairs, because that would be a disaster. I can click on an area, then give it a name, Then I'm going to drag and drop the no-go zone so that the vacuum will not clean that area. You can also lay out furniture like these couches and dining table so that the vacuum will avoid them on future cleanings. Also note that the AI detection is so good that it knows the direction of the floorboards. So if you have a wood floor, you can tell the vacuum to go with the grain so it doesn't scratch the floor. The final feature I want to try out is the camera. There's a huge camera lens on the dead center of the vacuum, and if I go into settings, I can use the vacuum as a remote control camera. To make the video secure, hold down the 3 buttons, set up a password, and you'll be able to remotely connect to the vacuum. Once again, I was amazed at this remote control magic. This is great if I'm ever away from home and I need to check on something, like the stray dog coming into my house. I can use a vacuum to make sure that everything is okay. And that's really cool. When you're done using the remote control camera, you can hit the charge button and the vacuum will go back to its docking station. Alright, I've gone through all the settings, so now Murphy, my son's dog, is going to help me run some tests. The first test is to see what would happen if there's an obstacle in the way of the vacuum. And no surprise, it just goes right around it and continues cleaning the area. Murphy's a pretty large obstacle, so I'm going to try something a little bit more complicated like this tripod. And I'm happy to say the vacuum went around it without ever touching it. So it passed test number 2. Test number 3 is to see what would happen if the LiDAR sensor is blocked. And surprisingly, it worked nearly perfectly. With all the cleaning, the glass on the sensors are bound to get dirty, and the AI in the vacuum was able to compensate for some obstruction. But Murphy probably got some motion sickness. We've tested large objects, so I wanted to see what would happen with something small. And my friends, I'm happy to say that the vacuum ran so smoothly it did not even shake the ground or knock it over. For the next test, we added additional small objects and placed them randomly throughout the room. Not only did it not knock them over, it sent a notification to my phone that there was a tiny obstacle in its way. The last test was to try even smaller objects to see how the vacuum would handle it. I have goldfish, crackers, flour, and cereal. I'm assuming the goldfish will be skipped over because they're so large, especially piled up together, but I do think it will pick up the cereal and flour. Murphy was feeling better, so he helped us out again, and surprisingly the vacuum skipped over the cereal, but was able to easily pick up the goldfish and flour, then went back and grabbed the cereal with no issues. Because there was flour, I did vacuum only mode, and the mops were automatically disconnected. The suction kicked on and drained the vacuum, and I easily emptied out the vacuum bag. After that, I ran it in mopping and vacuum mode, and the floor was properly cleaned. The vacuum has a suction of 7,000 Pascal, so there was no traces of the powdered flour. After mopping, there's no traces of the cereal, goldfish, or flour, and now my friends, we have a very clean floor. I'm very happy with the Dreame L20 and highly recommend it, and you can get the exact model by clicking the links below. And as always, if this video helped you, please go out and help someone else. Thanks for watching and have a great day.